I'm Scott Miller. It is the 23rd of March, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in Leon, Nicaragua. Today we're going to talk about something completely different, totally unique for the channel, and that is why or how it all works that everyone has kids so young here in Nicaragua. Sorry, I thought they were yelling at me there. They were just talking to each other in the field, but it's such a remote location. I was like, wait, someone's trying to talk to me. All right, beautiful day out here in Carlos Canales. I don't often come out here and it gets so pleasant. I love how beautiful it is out here. Just rustic fields. It's beautiful. Anyway, okay, so one of the facts of life, pun intended, here in Nicaragua is that people have kids very young, very young. And coming from the United States, where there's such an incredible stigma about teenage pregnancy, it's something that I think is worth talking about, because when people move here, it tends to be something that they talk about extensively, and they get really kind of upset about it, or really have a hard time kind of internalizing what it really means and why it works the way that it does. So I want to talk about it a little bit because I've put some thought into it, and I know a lot of people from both camps, and I think I have some insight into this that I think will be beneficial for everyone. Well, let's get into it. So in the United States, we have this entire thought process that having kids young is bad, having kids in high school is a problem. It makes it difficult for girls to get through school. It makes education hard. It makes job opportunities hard. It does all these things that interrupts life. Ooh, I love the light right here, and causes some real problems. Actually, I'm gonna turn the camera around so you can see why the light looks this way. Other than that trash there on the ground, this is beautiful. Just this sunset in the tree. Oh, so, and it causes all these social problems, right? Girls can't get through school. It makes it difficult to go to university. Their careers are stunted. It impacts the economy. How will the kids be raised? Who's going to take care of them? There's just all these problems. Plus the stigma of it. You have to deal with it your entire life. Oh, you had a kid very young. Oh, that's too bad, or whatever, right? And so in the United States, it's important to understand that many of the problems with having teenage pregnancies is because the U.S. has a problem with teenage pregnancies. We make school difficult for girls who've had kids. School isn't naturally difficult for girls who just had kids. Maybe more difficult than if you didn't have a kid, but it's not significantly more difficult, right? School shouldn't have all these completely pointless needs to be in a sport, to sit in a classroom. Why not do it online? Why not just let people learn? Why not just make it about education? Suddenly, having a kid at home is kind of the best thing to do when you're just sitting around doing that stuff. If you're doing good education, if you're actually doing school around the goal of educating and not around babysitting, that whole babysitting mentality creates a need for schools to really work hard to make teenage pregnancy a negative, because it interrupts the process. It ruins the thought of how they're going to use school. So a lot of people really dislike it for that reason. I'm gonna grab some more sun here. This is just so beautiful. So if you didn't have society intentionally or possibly unintentionally making an incredible stigma and making incredible roadblocks to teenage pregnancy, a lot of the things that we consider bad about it in the United States would simply go away, and it wouldn't be a problem. Now, the United States does not have, or traditionally does not have, a need for population growth. So they did not do a lot to push people to have more and more children because they're not worried about growing the population. Other places, South Korea, Japan, Germany, Italy, all of them would be pretty thrilled if people were having kids younger and younger because they're in population decline and they're worrying about it. Here in Nicaragua, people are having plenty of kids, so they're not worried about it, but it's important to understand that the United States is not using the political system to try to encourage additional children, so this falls into that, right? It's just part of the general equation. But they do have a lot of social structures that they depend on. They depend on putting kids in school. They depend on having a really long college and university process for a very high percentage of people. They depend on those things feeling like requirements because it creates part of the system of just how the economy works. It creates millions of jobs within the education system that aren't actually needed. It creates tons of unemployment mitigation that wouldn't actually happen. It's all there for these reasons, And so there's a culture around it. Here in Nicaragua, we don't have that. Another thing I have to say is there's a very high employment rate in the United States. This is probably the biggest factor. The United States does need more workers, but not to the point where they need to have additional kids per se. But they don't have people who are unemployed. They have dual income families are the norm, and no one works from home. No one, right? Almost no one works from home, and you work very late in life. So you have all of the generations, older and younger than you, are also working. How is it different in Nicaragua? Well, basically all of that is different. First of all, school is much more flexible and much less required. So they do more to get everyone through school. If you have a baby while you're in school, it doesn't actually affect anything, or at least not very much. There's plenty of systems for allowing you to keep going to school even though you've had a baby. And it's completely normal. There's no stigma with it. So because there's no stigma, most of those social things don't fall apart. It's weird, but when you think about it, why would having a baby actually cause problems for a teenager? Well, they actually don't unless you intentionally make problems for them. Just organically, it doesn't really happen. And teenagers are actually the healthiest ages to be having babies in most cases, older teenagers. That means that there's less of a strain on the healthcare system. In the United States, we push people to have babies not even starting until it starts to become a health issue. And by the time anyone's possibly considering having a third, they're really into ages where it could be very dangerous, and you need a really advanced healthcare system around natal and prenatal care just to keep people alive so they can keep having babies because they waited so long. So just being naturally healthier is part of the Nicaragua system. But where it really changes, where everything becomes completely different, is when you start looking at the unemployment. Here in Nicaragua, unemployment is very high, and that causes a few things that you probably don't think about. And this just happens anywhere, not 100%, but nearly anywhere, that you have incredibly high unemployment. The first thing you drop is secondary home incomes. If everybody in the United States was struggling to find work, well, if you have a dual income family, you simply become a single income family, and the problem is solved in many ways. The system will adjust for it. And traditionally, we were single income in the United States. That everyone needed a dual income is a recent thing. And if everyone does it, then everyone has to do it. But if no one does it, no one has to do it, right? The system really does correct. And that is a bit of economics that may not be super obvious, but it really does work that way. If you just eliminate dual incomes, you take the majority of the rather affluent and shift them down, and all of society shifts with it. Costs go down with it, so that yes, there's less buying power, but not nearly as much less as you would expect, because you have another person who's at home not taking a job, but they're probably cooking, they're babysitting, they're doing all kinds of things that are helpful and offset the loss of economic income without someone having to provide a job for them. They don't necessarily need an education or a formal one or a big one to be able to do that. And so it's really not the big deal that it seems like. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you really do have a struggle with unemployment, one of the things you tend to do is cut off retirement, by meaning you shift retirement down. And Nicaragua has done this, as many countries have who have lots of unemployment. They make it that you retire earlier. This means there's fewer people looking for work, and there's more people staying at home and able to help. What this results in is that almost everyone who may be in their teenage years and having a baby almost certainly has parents and or grandparents at home, with somewhere between 1 and 3 of them who have plenty of time to take care of a baby, and in fact probably didn't raise their own baby as their parents had to raise their baby for them. They're looking forward to the chance to raise a baby. It's their turn. This is where things are totally different than in America. The person having the baby is the person that raises the baby in America or Western Europe or Canada or whatever. There's exceptions, but by and large. But in Nicaragua, by and large, it is the parents of the person having the baby that raises them. And yes, the direct parent or parents are involved, but almost more like an older sibling or like an aunt or uncle, rather than being the direct parents. And their parents, and in some cases their grandparents, are the ones taking care of the baby. One of the reasons that this works is because of the unemployment thing, but another is because of the shortened generations, because everyone's having babies at much younger ages. Even if you're not having them as a teenager, you're not waiting until 30 or 40 to have babies, you're having them in your early 20s. Everything shifts down. So it is not uncommon to have the grandparents be in their very early 30s, 40 at the oldest, and they are easily able to take care of the babies that are being born. They're just a little bit too old to be safely having babies without any health concerns, but they're certainly not too old to be taking care of babies, and are often in the best possible position to do so because they've already had their working life, they are already educated, they've done all those things, and now they are well prepared to stay home and know a lot about baby care, are mature and don't feel the need to go out and party, or very, very seldom. And so it actually creates some really good artifacts around childcare that you would never imagine, because even at, say, 25 or 30 years old, you typically have people who are pretty ambitious with life. They want to go to the bar, they want to go to the club, they want to do things, they have a career they want to work on. That's a bad age to be having babies in a lot of cases. It's a big struggle, and children have to be just one of many factors that people are weighing. But once you're a grandparent and you've already had those years and you're a little bit more settled, you're a little bit more looking to stay at home, you already have a home to put that child in, then it's often really easy to be able to focus on that baby. Plus, the baby's parents are there. You're simply getting more generations to look after the child. The whole "it takes a village" thing starts to kick in more. You're much less left on your own, no matter who you are in the system. Plus, in Nicaragua, it is normal for families to live together. It is normal to have a multi-generational household where there are children who are potentially of childbearing age, parents and grandparents all within the same house, if not almost certainly within the same barrio, often on the same street, within a quick walking distance of each other. That means that there are many resources potentially to look after a child. Where I grew up in Western New York, it was normal for you to have your parents, who are much older than you, look after you. And if you had a grandparent nearby, they probably weren't that close. I was lucky. Mine was 1 block away. Only one grandparent, not all of them. For a lot of people, they were much farther away. Some, they're next door, it happens. But in general, they may be a different town, right? And it's normal for people to get married in the United States from different places, possibly different states, and often to move for work. And so you're really often not near your family. But in Nicaragua, you're often with all those people together. I say often a lot. So it's easy to be able to have the parent look after the child, sometimes the grandparent look after most of the time, a great-grandparent that may step in from time to time, right? All those things are there, and that family environment is really strong. Plus, there's aunts and uncles and other people in the area, plus neighbors and stuff that have been around for generations. It's not, oh, we just moved here and there's a bunch of people who live in our cul-de-sac, and yeah, we've known them for 6 months. We don't really know them, right? It's a completely different lifestyle. And so it's difficult to really point out just how many of the factors that drive Americans and Western Europeans to push for older and older ages for having children, that in Nicaragua they do the opposite. They encourage people to have children very young because it often creates the best results. It is absolutely the polar opposite. There is no stigma about having a child young. There is no, it's going to be a problem. The entire system works with you rather than against you. And sure, some people choose to wait, no problem at all. But many, many, many choose to, or don't choose to, but end up having children extremely young, and it does not pose a problem. It is not a life-ruining event in many cases. Everyone is excited because the earlier you have a child, within reason, the healthier everyone is going to be, the safer everyone is, the more time the parents have with the child, the more time the grandparents have with the child, the more time the great-grandparents have with the child. My great-grandparents barely knew I was born before they passed on, simply because they were that old. That is normal. But here, it is normal for great and great-great-grandparents to still be around and get to know a child. Great-great really is pushing it, but great-grandparents are often actively involved in their lives. People of my age are expected to be grandparents with older grandkids. And imagine that would be fantastic. As a parent whose kids are in their middle years, it's sad to me that I could have had 10 more years with my kids. Yeah, that would have been really hard, especially growing up in America. There's a lot of things that would not have been there to make that easy, but I could have had them in my early 20s instead of my early 30s and had so much more time with them. We love spending time together. We're best friends, right? We want to be together, and there's a huge portion of my life that they weren't there for. And when they have kids, I'm going to be an old grandparent, and I'm going to get very limited time with my grandkids, and And when I do, I won't be young and spry. I will be older, and there's a lot of things I can't do. That's a big negative for me, and seeing all these people who are my age, who've had kids already for most of their lives. Not for me, I've had them for about a third of my life. But a lot of the people I know, they've had them for over half. They're already having grandkids. I'm at an age where I would love to have grandkids. That would be fun. I would be a great grandfather, I would be a wonderful grandfather already. That's something that I would enjoy, and I'm looking forward to when my kids do have kids, because I'm already ready to have little kids again. But I get so much less of that because we did the American thing and waited until we were much older. And this wasp is back. There is something about me. They are obsessed with my arms. So it's so counterintuitive. It's so against what is ingrained in us, coming from the North. But here, it really does make sense in so many ways. As long as you take away that social stigma, it all comes together. Everything fits. And partially the social structures are the way they are because people have kids young. But people have kids young because there's all these social structures to support them. Parents do not react negatively. Thank goodness we finally get grandkids. Grandparents don't react negatively. Woohoo, great grandkids. This is so exciting. Everyone's there to support each other. The school system works with you. The healthcare system works with you. Nobody ostracizes you for supporting society and choosing to be a parent early on at the healthy, natural ages. So it really is amazing how well it works. And when you're coming to Nicaragua, don't come with a feeling of this is some terrible societal thing that should be fixed. Come and say, wow, this is the absolute opposite approach to what we're used to. Maybe it has some really good benefits. Maybe it makes the things that actually matter in life, like spending time with family, getting to be with your kids, staying healthy, being happy. Maybe it prioritizes those things over the absolute maximum economic benefit. Sure, we don't have as many factory workers. We don't have as many trained engineers to work in those factories. We don't send as many people to work. Is that really what life is about? I don't think so. And I think everything in Nicaragua, from just the way we eat, to the way we go out, to the way we get entertainment, to the way we live, all those things point to prioritizing different things in life, not manufactured goods. And I think the way that we approach having children in this country mirrors that. It's part of the experience, the family, the friends, the things we do in life are more important than the things we buy. It's a different approach. And I think the people who are living that every day, yes, there are negatives that come with it for sure, but there's so many positives that come with it. I don't think if you could sit down with society as if it was a person and have a conversation with society, that society would choose to change it. From having witnessed both, maybe I would tweak things. Maybe Nicaragua goes a little bit too early. Maybe America goes a little bit too late. But if I was to choose which one I think produces the better average result, I've got to say, I think Nicaragua does. I know, I tend to lean that way with things. It's also why I moved here, right? Because they have the mix of things that I tend to agree with. This is where I like the way that people go out. I like the way that bars are. I like that there's less traffic. I like that there's fewer cars. I like that things are walkable. I like that there's lots of fresh air. I like that the weather is even. I don't like that it's hot. That's too much. It's not hot now. This is beautiful. It was 97. I didn't record 2 hours ago because it was 97. Now it's so pleasant. It's beautiful. Anyway, that is my day. Thanks for joining me. Please remember to like and subscribe. It makes all the difference. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Scott Allen Miller. And get down there in those comments. What do you think about this whole having babies really early thing and family support? And it takes a village, and the village is all within the house, and people living together, multi-generational homes, and all that local family support, and all those kinds of things that Nicaragua prioritizes, and that just happens here. I want to know your opinions, and what have you experienced? What have you seen? Especially those of you who have kids. Would you choose what you did, or whatever? Let's talk about it. And of course, my new business, RelocateNicaragua.com. If you're interested in any assistance in finding a home, finding the right city for you, being attached to a lawyer who can help you with planning around residency or whatever, any of the things that you may need for relocation, let us know at info@RelocateNicaragua.com. We'd love to talk to you and see how we can help with your relocation or potential relocation plans. And I will see all of you tomorrow.